This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
The Patriots now 1-1 after their loss against Seattle on Sunday. We'll get to that game and Greg's thoughts. But first, I remind you, the Prize Picks app, you want to download that today. Use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly. When you play $5, you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Also, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, Greg, let's talk about this game from Sunday, Seahawks, Patriots. Let's start with the offense, I guess. Let's start there. I know you reviewed the defensive film just moments ago, so we'll give you a little bit more time to kind of absorb it. Let's start with the offensive line, Greg. Just overall thoughts, 30,000 feet. How much of a disaster was it on Sunday?
It was pretty bad. I mean, look, I would say the run blocking on the whole was better than week one. It's still sort of wildly inconsistent. The yards before contact were much better in this game than they were week one. Like, for instance, so the league average is yards before contact is 1.38. Stevenson in this game was at 1.38. Gibson was at 2.09. We all remember, like, week one, they were like 0.1 or so, like it was horrible. So I would say the run blocking on the whole was a lot better. They still allowed, I think it was 10 run stuffs in this game. So, not great, but definite progress there with the run blocking. But as far as pass protection, it's still, a big issue. I mean, basically, depending on where you go, like I think PFF has it like, 45, 48%, very similar to week one. I had it 55% pressure rate, more than week one. Again, that's me. And, maybe they do things a different way. Now I will say in this game, two of the 18 pressures were on Jacoby Brissett. The first sack, in my opinion, he didn't need to take. And then there was another one where he took a hit later in the game where I put it on Brissett. So whereas he didn't have any pressure in the first game, the big topic of conversation is the offense, the passing offense and all this. And, the wide receivers have 3 catches for 19 yards. And, is it the scheme? Is it the players? Is it, and I, at Boston Sports Journal, if you want to be a member, like, this is the type of article that you want to be a member for, because I broke down via video and also text, writing it out, basically my summarization, every single pass drop in this game. And we broke it down with the coach's film, first half, second half. There's a lot of stuff there. And, I wanted to know, and I don't know what. I don't go in with any preconceived notion. I just let the film dictate and break it down play by play. And then at the end, you total things up. And at the end of the day, I looked at, if something didn't work, what was to blame? And at the end of the day, out of the, let's see, basically half the problems in the passing game were on the offensive line. A little bit of it was on Jacoby Brissett. He missed some plays. He missed some opportunities. The receivers were up a little tick on that. They didn't have a very good first half. And when I say receivers, that means not getting open. There were some route issues, like Jalen Polk stopped a route for no reason when Alex Van Pelt had dialed up a deep shot. So, I know there's a lot of talk about Alex Van Pelt in this scheme, and is he doing enough? Are they trying enough? And I would say on film, the answer is yes. They are trying to do things, but almost every time that they try it, there's a breakdown. And usually the blocking doesn't hold long enough to let things develop. or you have some other issues. But so to me, the big thing is it's week 2. They're working through this. They got to figure out the line blocking. If that doesn't, I don't care who's at quarterback. If that doesn't improve, and I'm fearful, Nick, that it's, you can somewhat make it workable in week 1. You can hold it together a little bit more in week 2. But now there's more and more film and the weaknesses on the Patriots and, also just their play in general. Now they're down to probably, if Vidarian Lowe can't go on Thursday night, they're down to their 3rd left tackle already at this point. And so I worry that it's not going to get better, that it's going to get worse. But they got to figure it out because there are opportunities. There are guys open. Demario Douglas does have opportunities to get the ball. Now, do I think Alex Van Pelt can do a little bit more in the short and intermediate game just to get the ball in his hands? Yeah, I do. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if they doubled down on that this week. I thought they were going to do it for last week. But the big thing is this passing game is not productive enough. And to me, it starts with the offensive line. That's where most of the blame lies. And they got to get that figured out.
Yeah, a few things here to unpack. Talking about Greg's story, I read that this morning. So about 74% of the dropbacks, there were issues with the offense. Things didn't go great. About 25% of the dropbacks, you had good stuff happen. Out of the 74%, you say how much of that was the O-line? Greg had it at about 45% and Brissett about 13%. So that's, the 58% of your 75 there. So ipso facto, as they say, offensive line absolutely more than double and even, triple the issue that Jacoby Brissett was on Sunday, if you're wondering. Offensive line, Greg and I have talked about this. We have believed that this team would be able to figure some things out and be okay eventually after the first 4 to 6 weeks. But, of course, things evolve. And, number one, Chooks is now not on this team. So even if you didn't think he was doing a great job, which he wasn't, he was still tackle depth and a guy who started 60 games in the NFL, more than 60 after starting for the Patriots. So, you lose Chooks. Then, as Greg mentioned, Vidarian Lowe goes down. Don't know what's going to happen with him. It's a knee issue. David Andrews popped up yesterday on the injury report as a DNP, and it wasn't listed as rest. It was listed as hip. So how healthy is David Andrews? And this is when you start to get some concerns because now attrition is playing a role. Finally, I'd say about Pop Douglas, some of it is the longer developing routes they're having him run. Some of it is pass protection breaking down when he's open. But I agree with you, Greg, and I've talked about this. You've got to do a better job of getting him the football. And you've got to find ways. When you run that reverse with the wide receiver, don't run that to Jalen Polk. Run that to Pop or Tyquan Thornton. I don't know why you went to Polk on that play. I like Polk a lot, but he's not a super athlete. And he took forever to get to the edge, and then he didn't cut up like he should have. Get it to Pop Douglas. Get him in space. So they should absolutely do a much better job. They didn't throw a single screen to a wide receiver in that game. Throw him a bubble screen. Get him in space. Last thing I'll say about the offense, Greg, and this is something that you wrote. Van Pelt dialed up at least 15 plays where the Patriots were going to have the potential for a big play or at least a bigger play, and something broke down. That has nothing to do with him. I do think there was some issues with Van Pelt. I didn't love all of his play calls. The 3rd and 3 left me scratching my head. Some other stuff that he did. But he wasn't a huge issue on Sunday. But let's talk about the quarterback because that's the one guy we haven't really dove deep into. Jacoby Brissett, I think he continues to be okay. Nothing special. But really, Greg, in my estimation, he's been as good as you could expect him to be given who he is and given the circumstances he's dealing with. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I mean, especially like in some of the sacks that he's avoided. I mean, that one was that at the end of the game, where it looked like he was almost going to go down for a safety, and he's dancing around and he gets the ball out. I had him for, I had him for 5+ throws in this game, and 4 of them were against pressure. Now I did have him for the 2 pressures allowed. He had a throw, that rollout to Jalen Polk, for example, and everybody probably remembers it. It's a rollout to the right. Brissett has Polk's open, or as open as you're going to get in the NFL, and Jacoby missed him, and he should have made the throw. Now, there are more circumstances to that. If you go back and you watch the film, KJ Osborne is blocking the end, and he does it for about 0.5 seconds, and then he just stands there. He literally turns around, tries to put his butt on the defender, and all of a sudden the guy takes off, and he's in Jacoby's face, and he makes that throw much harder than it needed to be. Now, I still don't absolve Jacoby. He still should have made the throw. An NFL quarterback should make that throw. But it's just the little attention to details on something like that aren't happening. But I think, Nick, what we've seen so far through 2 weeks, Nick, is about what we expected. Now, I will say, I think Jacoby Brissett, in terms of not taking sacks, like I said, his decisiveness, not really holding the ball, those were all things that have been, a staple of his play in the NFL to this point. And it gets him into a lot of trouble. Now, he doesn't, he's been one of the most sacked quarterbacks in terms of rate since he came into the league, and he's doing a great job of avoiding that and putting this team into worse circumstances. Now, we also knew sort of going into this that Jacoby is what he is. He's not going to elevate anybody, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have a team that does not protect well, he's going to have issues. When you have a team that their wide receivers don't win off of man coverage, I'm just looking because I had the stats. When they don't win off of man coverage, Jacoby's not going to, make things happen out of thin air like some quarterbacks. And now the hope is you have a guy in Drake May who's warming and getting ready, and he'll eventually be that type of guy that can elevate that unit. I still wouldn't rush it, but the Patriots were 8 of 17 for 48 yards against man coverage. Man coverage is about talent. The Seahawks, conversely, were 11 of 17 for 107 yards and 7 passing first downs against man coverage. And the Patriots were 8 of 17 for 48 yards. They were 6 of 8 for 72 yards against zone. I'm guessing that was probably mostly Hunter Henry early on in the game before the Seahawks played more and more man coverage as the game went on. And that's sort of where you saw the passing offense really disappear, because really beating man coverage is about talent among the receivers and tight ends and what have you. It's not really about scheme. It's just man beating man. Zone is more about scheme beating the coverage. And what we see so far is the Patriots aren't good enough on the outside to beat man coverage, and that's going to continue to be an issue and sort of in tandem with the offensive line hold this passing offense down. But I think overall, Jacoby did fine. I thought his touchdown pass was great. It was a bit of a busted coverage by the Seahawks. I mean, he hummed it in there. That was really good. He made some really nice pressure plays against pressure again. But unless they block better and get open better, this is about what they're going to be.
Do you see a lot of hesitancy from him, or do you see some hesitancy to push it downfield when there are plays to be made?
Not really. I mean, there are certain times where I don't like his decision making, or I do think that he could do something better. For example, the 3rd and 6 play that everybody's talking about, the sack and then the block field goal, which was the biggest part of the game. He does have an opportunity. So Pop's on the left and Pop's running an out. It's man coverage. Jacoby's throwing from the opposite hash mark across the field. There's a cornerback there. The good quarterbacks in this league, they throw that and they probably convert the first down. Now, I think Jacoby, and he even hinted at this in his post-game press conference, that he wanted to make sure he took care of the ball. Now, that pass, high rate of pick six. I mean, you're on pick six alert. It could happen, pop stumbles or whatever. Like, anything could happen. If that's Mac Jones throwing that pass, it's definitely a pick six. Now, Jacoby, I do think he has a stronger arm. He can make that throw, but I think he was just trying to manage the game. And I didn't have a huge problem with it. I didn't have a huge problem with the sack. The Patriots should still make the field goal. It should not get blocked. Austin Hooper screwed up the field goal block. So I don't put that on Brissett. The blocking, again, didn't, he made one read and then two guys were on top of him. I mean, I don't know really what you're supposed to do in that circumstance. But no, I don't see a ton of hesitancy. I marked him down for two decisions in the game, both in the second half. One, he went to Jalen Polk, where I think he had Pop Douglas. Pop Douglas was coming open. It was the play where Jalen Polk caught like a 7-yard pass with under a minute left. And of course, Jalen Polk decides to pose, even though there's a running clock on like a 7-yard nothing gain. But if Jacoby hangs on a little longer, he's got Pop coming across the middle for a bigger play, and maybe they get into field goal range. But those were really I only had two instances where I was like, you know what, he could have done a little bit more in that play.
Didn't love the sack. I think that's a bad sack to take. I'll disagree with you on that. As far as the man coverage stuff, as Greg mentioned, it really changed the dynamic of this football game as Seattle and Mike McDonald evolved from, playing that zone coverage to going to a lot more man. And Greg had the numbers in his article. Henry had 5 catches, 82 yards against zone. All of those catches, all 5 of those catches were for first downs. Against man coverage, Julian Love kind of took care of him for much of this game. Once they went to man, Henry had 3 catches for 27 yards. So the offense, the water was just shut off. And the Patriots had a very difficult time in adjusting to that. Some of the stuff, as Greg mentioned, the pass protection, the wide receivers, separation, all of that stuff played a role. All right, let's get to defense. But before we do that, Greg's got a message for all of you fine people watching and or listening to this podcast.
It's that time of year. It's getting a little cool outside. The weather's awesome. And you know what that means? It's football season. And to enjoy football, you really got to be there, whether it's pro or college. You got to get out to a game. The tailgating, the smells, the sights, the sounds, all that stuff. You got to be there. There's nothing like game day, whether it's pro or NFL. And you got to go to Game Time. They have seats. They have deals. They have everything you need. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filter out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the all-in pricing. You just click a little button. You get that feature, shows the total up front. No surprise fees at the end. You know what I'm talking about. Seat views, get panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. That's a must for me. I have to know where I'm sitting, what I can see, what the angle is. I was just checking. If you want to go down for Jets Patriots on Thursday night, invade North Jersey and see your team, there's some great deals you can get. I'm just looking right now. A little pricey for me, maybe not for you guys. Lower sideline, row 31, $277 all in. You can get in third deck, end zone, less than $200 all in.
Wow.
I see $109, $106. You should definitely check it out and join me down in North Jersey. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
It's defense time. So let's talk about DeMarcus Covington's unit. Obviously, in the first week of the season, we praised them for the most part. They rattled Joe Burrow in the first half. They got some pressure. They were great against the run game. against Seattle, especially in the first half, there was some leakage against the pass. Let me first ask you this, Greg, because a lot of people have talked about it. The hurry-up offense by Seattle seemed to make the Patriots look a little bit scrambled. Did you see the same thing when you watched the film this morning?
Yes, I did. And I saw it live. And to me, like it was, we know Ryan Grubb, their new offensive coordinator, came from the University of Washington, where he had Penix and Polk and all those guys. I thought that they sort of ran like a college offense. There were times where they would get up to the line quickly, sort of go like muddle huddle and get a look from the Patriots and then look over to the sideline and they'd, change some things and flip people around. Like I thought it was a tremendous job by them. It's something that I don't understand why more teams, why they don't do it against the Patriots. A lot of these career NFL coaches, they're sort of stuck in their way and how they do things, but you get these guys from college, and especially the guys who can balance the NFL game and the college game, because I don't think you can just go like, straight college offense. It's just, not going to work in the NFL with these type of athletes. But, when you force a team to do that, especially a Patriots team that likes to dial things up in certain circumstances, and, we're going to show pressure, then we're going to drop and, all this stuff, getting to the line and then seeing what they're in and sort of countering that, really saps the creativity out of it and makes them go more vanilla. So I thought they did a tremendous job, the Seahawks and Grubb, doing that and really sort of, throwing the Patriots for a loop. And, it led to, some big plays, like, for example, the Metcalf touchdown, which was a busted coverage. And, I thought that Grubb got the best of DeMarcus Covington in this game. Two first-time coordinators. I know I'm trying to look for it, but there were a couple times where I noted where they just got beat. And, there were some times I thought Covington was a little bit over-aggressive. I know some people have made a big deal out of it, and even Brissett said something about like, oh, we had a tell. Like, I think a lot of that stuff is like overrated. And as far as the offense, we talked about the offense. I think it was mostly Jacoby covering for the offensive line and the receivers. Then, there wasn't any point on film with the Patriots offense where I was like, geez, that defense, they just couldn't run that against this defense. I never saw that on film. It wasn't about that. It was about the protection. It was about other things. But as far as the defense, I thought for the most part, the defense, was pretty good. Geno Smith was just spectacular. But I do think that I'm worried, Nick, that there's a creeping in of a little bit of undisciplined play. Not letting Geno Smith get outside of the pocket, where, I wouldn't say he killed the team, but I mean, he made some crucial plays, and there's nobody there on the edge. You had the busted coverage. You had, which in my opinion was Kyle Duggar. Then you had the Charbonneau play on the drive in overtime, 3rd and 6. You make a play, you get off the field, they probably punt, you get the ball back, and nobody's covering Charbonnet out of the backfield. In my opinion, it was supposed to be Duggar again. And so you worry with Juwan Bentley now out for the year. Kyle Duggar's going to have the green dot. Are there going to be more communication issues? I know Mayo thought it went really well in that game. I disagree. And I thought Kyle Duggar was responsible for 2 of the biggest busts in the game. Christian Gonzalez could have still made the tackle, coming off his guy. He dove, didn't make the tackle. And, those type of plays are huge in a game like this. And the Patriots are going to play a bunch of games like this that are 1-score games. And you either make the plays or you don't. And down the stretch in the final 6 minutes in overtime of the game, the Patriots didn't make enough plays.
Yeah, Gonzalez has to make that tackle on 3rd and 6 against Charbonnet. And, you got to stop him short of the sticks there. He didn't. Charbonnet gets the first down. Seattle continues, and we know how it ends. I thought it was interesting, watching the offenses and what Grubb was doing. really the antithesis of Alex Van Pelt. Van Pelt, not a ton of motion. If you look at the Patriots' motion numbers, pre-snap motion across the NFL and how they stack up, they don't run a lot of motion. When you look at Grubb, you had a lot of motion. You had some shifting. And then when the Patriots tried to do something fancy, it was the worst time to do it, which was the 3rd and 1 play. And you got Tyquan Thornton out there. It looked like nobody had a clue what the hell to do. And you get a penalty. So you've got one offense that does a lot pre-snap. You've got another offense that doesn't do a lot of pre-snap. Let me ask you this about doing stuff pre-snap, post-snap, Greg. Do you think we saw on Sunday DeMarcus Covington, his play calling, maybe trying to be a little bit too tricky at times and it biting them in the ass this time around versus what we saw against Cincinnati in week 1?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were a couple times, where, you're looking at it and Josh Uche and Keon White are dropping down the deep middle of the field in cover 2. Now, Uche did have a really good cover early in the game. Keon White was victimized later in the game. I don't know, Nick. I thought at times in this game, I thought it was like that stuff was like too risky. Like the Seahawks they're too talented to, try to trick them. I thought, Geno Smith was just, I thought he was borderline spectacular in this game in terms of how he dealt with things. I mean, it's just like, I know there was a certain point in the game, especially in the 4th quarter, when, the Patriots decided to get back to like really pounding the football, the Stevenson touchdown, that drive, and then the ensuing drive where they ran the ball, I think every single down to get down there. And I just think that, I just think that the Patriots just got like a little too cute for things and thought they needed to do certain things to gain an edge in this game, where I just like, the Seahawks with their talent with Metcalf and Lockett and Smith and Jigba and, Geno Smith, like, I think they would have been much better off sort of playing a little bit more conservative on defense. And, I thought the Seahawks talent just won out one too many times.
Yeah, I don't need to see Keon White dropping into coverage against Jackson Smith and Jigma on a 3rd and 7. I really don't need to see that play call. Appreciate the attempt at creativity, but not the moment and not the matchup that I want in the middle of the field. It just didn't make much sense to me. But let me get to the biggest issue we haven't even touched on, I think, about this defense. A 4-man pass rush. We talked about this in the preseason. You trade Matthew Judon. You don't have Christian Barmore due to the blood clot situation. I think all of us looked at this and said, how are they going to get home? How are they going to get to the quarterback enough? And Greg, outside of Keon White, you got Joshua Uche showing up. He was okay on Sunday, had some pressures. But this team, 4-man pressure, they are having one hell of a time trying to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. And even Keon White at times, I mean, he did a lot of damage from the inside. He certainly has his plays, but I'm just looking through it. Like outside of Keon White, I have, Anthony Jennings with a pressure because he drew a holding penalty. I only have Joshua Uche for half a hurry in the game. I have Jeremiah Farms for a knockdown. I have Dietrich Wise in the first half, had a knockdown in a hurry. That's when he broke up what would have been a DK Metcalf touchdown on another coverage bust by the Patriots in the back end. The play where Jabril Peppers got his hand on it. Tavai and Raekwon McMillan coming from the second level for hurries. Marcus Jones was brought from distance and had a hurry. So, yeah, not a whole lot in the pressure department for this team. And, yeah, it's a worry, and you wonder if that sort of fueled DeMarcus Covington in terms of, like, we got to do all this creative stuff, which obviously the Seahawks were ready for, anticipated. I know some people are talking about how, like, the Seahawks had this huge answer and huge plan. I mean, the Patriots' tendency, and I know Covington is new, but you showed it a bit in week 1. You sort of go off of last year. The Patriots have certain circumstances where they're high pressure rate teams, which is, they bring a blitz in certain circumstances. Third down's one of them. And when they get on the edge of field goal range, the Patriots love to bring pressure. And a couple times they brought 6-man pressures. Seattle anticipated it and just beat them at it, got it blocked up. And, that was a big story in this game.
All right, we're going to get to the coaching and then get to some ups and downs for Greg and his call here on the game against Seattle before we wrap things up. But first, Greg, tell the great people about Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is click more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. I wonder how many you can get on quarterback hits on Caleb Williams. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Going into this game, Nick, we're going to have to, on Wednesday, we're going to break it down for people, at least, my picks for this game. Pop Douglas is killing me, and him not getting anything, but definitely nailed the Hunter Henry last week. Also nailed the Jacoby Brissett under. I got a lot of people who are like, wait a minute, you have Hunter Henry over and Demario Douglas over, but you have Jacoby Brissett for I think it was under 180 yards or something like that. And I was like, well, Hunter Henry and Pop Douglas only have to get to 46 yards combined and I win. And I was definitely worried at halftime. Jacoby had 117 passing yards at halftime. I was like, well, that's gone. But in the end, he was under. So we'll be back later in the week before the Jets game to give you my picks on that.
All right. Greg, did you think Gerard Mayo had a good day on Sunday or not so good of a day on Sunday?
Not so good of a day, Nicholas.
I agree with you.
The end of the first half was just
disaster.
Yeah, he basically handed them 3 points. I mean, you gotta pick a lane. You got to decide what you're going to do. You got to anticipate what you think the other side is going to do, including have a defensive head coach. The Seahawks were leading 14-13 at the time. The Patriots get the ball at 1:37. They run for 2 yards on first down. Now you have to, and Seattle doesn't call a timeout. So in that circumstance, I'm probably running the ball. I mean, you could say a safe thing, like a screen, but with the Patriots passing game, I don't know what's safe at this point. So, I think at least you run another running play on second down, and you got to do one thing. You got to make Seattle take their timeouts at the very least. You got to make a decision on that. They didn't do any of that stuff. So Seattle gets the ball back after a really good punt return to midfield, and they don't have to go very far, and Seattle has all 3 of their timeouts. So they gave Seattle the opportunity, and if it wasn't for Seattle making a stupid decision to go on 4th and 1 and get stuffed, they should have had a double score there and really taken control of the game. But I thought there, and also, end of regulation, not great by Gerard Mayo.
Yeah, he blew timeouts in the second half. You had to blow a timeout because of 12 men on the field. You had to blow a timeout because you didn't get the play call in enough time when Stevenson fumbled but recovered it, and they're all kind of just scurrying around the goal line. So you blew 2 timeouts, which really came back and bit you. I would have gone for it in overtime on on 4th and 1. I know some people disagree. I don't think it's an easy call. I think you can push back. I think it's a reasonable debate to have and say, well, you're on your 39, and if you don't get that first down, then you're screwed. I would have gone for it. I would have been aggressive, but they didn't. They decided not to go for it. They punted, and they never got the ball back. So I thought it was not a very good day for Gerard. With it said,
I will say, Nick, just on that, first of all, in the whole overtime thing, with Vidarian Lowe had gone out.
Yep.
Caden Wallace was going to be your left tackle. I would have kicked there, and knowing, the rules have changed, and all you have to do is not give up a touchdown. And I'm sorry, that's Mayo's baby. All the players are there, all the money. Like, I would have kicked there at that point. But,
if you give up a field goal, you lose the game there because you had the first possession of overtime. So you had your possession. No,
I'm talking
to them. If Seattle kicks a field goal, you lose.
If I kick off in overtime and I give up a field goal, I lose.
If you defer, the team that receives it has to score first. The Patriots, they had the first possession of overtime. So I want to make, because it sounded like you had said, the only way I lose is if they score a touchdown. That you received the possession to start that overtime, then you punted. So if Seattle kicks a field goal there, as they did, you lose. So I just want to make people know the rules, because I think there's some confusion about overtime and how that works.
So the Patriots won the toss. And
yes,
if they elected to kick, then the touchdown rule doesn't apply. They can win with a field goal.
No, it does.
Even though you haven't possessed the ball.
All right. So if you win the toss and you defer, Seattle, if they score a touchdown, you lose. If they score a field goal, you get the ball, and you can match the field goal, or you can score a touchdown and win the game. The Patriots won the toss. They got the football first.
Yeah, but they didn't have to take the football.
Right. We're talking about two separate things. I know they didn't have to take the football. I'm talking about the 4th down call. They decided to punt, and then you're putting the game in Seattle's hands.
The punt. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going back to the coin toss first.
Okay. All right.
On the coin toss, considering like what's going on at left tackle, and like this is my defense, like I would have kicked the ball in overtime. They won the toss. I would have kicked the ball.
All right. So you would have put it in Seattle's hands and said, "Hey, look, if you score a field goal, good for you. We're getting the football. We have a chance to either tie or win this with a touchdown."
Yeah, and if Seattle goes down and scores a touchdown against my defense, I deserve to lose. But on the 4th and 1, I would not have gone for it. I would have kicked. I would have pinned them just like they did, and it's up to the defense to stop them. I just thought, the potential to turn it over at the New England 39 to the Seahawks and basically conceding the game. That's just not something I was comfortable with doing, but I understand the point and your viewpoint on that. I don't disagree with it. It's just not something I would have done.
Yeah, as I said, there's a reasonable pushback. There's a reasonable debate. There are arguments for each side. I would have been aggressive. I don't think you're going to win a ton of football games this year. Put some faith in your team and say, all right, we're going to go for it. We're a smash mouth team. We're going to try to make a point here and get this first down. But I also see the other side of the argument as well. The bigger picture to me is, look, we know Mayo and this staff, lots of new going on. I think we have to embrace the learning curve. We have to understand there are going to be mistakes. It's whether or not, and Gerard said this on Sunday, it's only a real loss if we don't learn from it. And that includes the coaching staff. With that said, to be fair, he was going against a fellow rookie head coach. So, and a first-time NFL offensive coordinator. And Seattle's coaching staff outcoached the Patriots on Sunday. It's not to say that Mayo's going to fail and this is all a disaster. On Sunday, they didn't have the best day. They got outcoached. All right, before we bid adieu, 3 up, 3 down, Greg.
Yeah, so just 3 things I liked in this game. The running backs. They were sensational. Antonio Gibson was tremendous. I think he only played like 16 snaps, but I mean, he was marking up my chart. The 45-yard run, turning it from a 5-yard loss into a 45-yard run. was spectacular. I'm not going to put Hunter Henry in this here. I just, it was a lot of his stuff was easy against zone. I wasn't that impressed. Keon White, definitely something I liked in this game. I thought it was really good. It needs to be a little bit more discipline on the edge against some of these quarterbacks, and I think he'll learn from that. And what else? Not much, really. I had issues with a lot of things. I mean, I will say the defensive line, I thought they did a really nice job against the run. The three things I did not like in this game. Number one, the offensive line. Did some nice things in the running game, but it wasn't consistent, and they were not good enough in pass protection, not even close. The secondary, I didn't like their play overall. I didn't think that they were, all that good. You had the defensive pass interference penalty against Marco Wilson, also the one against Jonathan Jones, which I did not disagree with on film. It looks like, and I know there wasn't a good replay, I saw a tug of Lockett's arms. I mean, look, Marcus Jones could have gotten one on the play next, or the play after that is somewhere in there. But I did think that was a legit call. I didn't have a huge problem with it. But you still got to play defense there. And I still think that the Patriots had an opportunity to get off the field. I thought Seattle gave you a lot in terms of penalties and drops as well. And what else didn't I like in this game? I think that's about it. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson has to stop fumbling. One of these times they're not going to bounce right back to the Patriots.
We're short on time. Greg has to go do the Felger and Maz show. So I will just say I disagree with Greg's opinion on the Jonathan Jones DPI.
Shocking.
Thought it was horseshit. And by the way, Lockett told Jonathan Jones that it was horse bleep after the game. So the receiver himself didn't think it was defensive pass interference. I thought that was a trash call, especially in that moment. Anyway, that'll do it for today. We're back quick turnaround. Jets on Thursday night. Greg and I will preview that game on the next pod. Until then, be well.